ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. This is Scott Renter from Collaborata. Um, Thank you everyone for attending. The scheduled events today is we will have a 20 minutes presentation from Kompren, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. As way of quick introduction, Collaborata is the first global platform connecting clients and suppliers together to do and develop multi-client research projects to share costs and share insights towards a shared mission, as well as to do competitive bidding on proprietary projects. Today, the goal of this webinar is to learn about the objectives of the project, this project being pitched on same-sex parents, talk about the current hypothesis and design of the study. During the presentation, feel free to send your questions in the chat box. We'll get to them at the end. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Kompren. Kompren is an insights and analytics firm founded by Ben Piper and Tara Forth, two market research veterans and former colleagues at Ipsos. Kompren's focus is helping clients understand and connect to diverse, multicultural, and influential markets. Tara specifically is a co-founder and principal researcher at Kompren. She's alumni of Vision Critical, whose careers included strategic account planning, research and analysis initiatives for companies of diverse industries, ranging from CPG to technology to retail, with a keen focus to apply innovation, creativity, and strategy to audience understanding and campaign development. And Ben Piper is the other co-founder and principal researcher at Kompren. He's an alum of Ipsos and Nielsen, whose career has involved leading-edge methodologies, including virtual ethnography, social intelligence, customer data integration, and consumer behavioral research. This study that we're about to present is as much personal as it is professional. So Ben, Tara, take it away.
Great. Thanks a lot, Scott, and thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Ben Piper, as Scott said, and I am one of the co-founders of Kompren. I've been in and around the market research industry for over 20 years. I started my career at Forrester Research in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I've worked on both the client and vendor side. I also spent a number of years as an industry analyst covering consumer technologies. And most recently, I've held senior roles at both Ipsos and Nielsen, where I've managed custom research studies for clients, including Microsoft, LinkedIn, and Google, among others. As Scott mentioned, Tara and I met while at Ipsos, where we worked together on Microsoft's largest product satisfaction tracking study. And for the years that we worked together, we talked a lot about using our research powers for good. And when the opportunity presented itself last year, Tara and I created Kompren with the idea of connecting brands and marketers to multicultural, diverse, and influential audiences. And while we see a lot of research out in the marketplace covering broad D&I or diversity and inclusion segments, all too often we see a monolithic approach to this research. So we at Kompren look at segments through a variety of lenses and identify opportunities that we think are not just good for goodness sake, but also present outstanding business opportunities. So let Tara do a quick intro as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, and thank you, Scott. This is Tara Forth, and welcome everyone to the call. I appreciate very much you calling in and joining us in this conversation. This research project is important to us, and we're very excited to be kicking it off. As Ben and Scott just described, again, I have experience over the past 20 years or so in the analytic field, working with Ben on some key product projects for Microsoft. I've also done some additional research in the retail vertical, the financial vertical, CPG vertical, and so on. I've also spent some time on the message development side of this, and so one of my key interests lies in the specific development and execution of the messages as they pertain to this diverse group that we are focusing on in this study. We want to make sure that what marketers are putting out there is resonating. We'll get into that in more detail. And we also want to be able to identify some areas where brands might need a little extra help. So using this sort of diverse background that the two of us are bringing to the table, we hope to pull together some very meaningful insights that will be very beneficial to brands across multiple verticals. Okay, so I guess we can get going here on the first slide on the introduction and background to the study. As I said, we are very excited to be launching this research with Collaborata. And the project is titled We Are Family. It's a multi-phased hybrid study focused on the same-sex parenting market in the US. There are a number of reasons we believe that this research is particularly relevant at this point in time. For example, over the past 8 to 10 years, we've seen the LGBT community witness some relevant changes, some seismic shifts, if you will, and evolution in terms of acceptance and awareness in overall socio-political climate. Clearly, there have been some major political victories, including the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, repeal of the Defense of Marriage Act, and perhaps most importantly, the Supreme Court decision legalizing same-sex marriage at the federal level. So in addition, there have been some sweeping changes in terms of acceptance in both the media and in public arenas. President Obama was the first sitting president to publicly endorse LGBT marriage, although it did take him a few years to get there. Finally, legislative and technological advances have substantially lowered the barriers for individuals in non-traditional families. What I mean by that is surrogacy, IVF, they've become more accessible. A lifting of most, if not all, restrictions on same-sex adoptions has made those options more attainable. And additionally, we have an overburdened foster care system. It still isn't close to finding placement for all of our youth in state care, which creates additional opportunities for persons intending to grow their families to reach out. So in the chart that you see here, we've got specifics on some same-sex marriage. This points a fascinating picture of the complete pendulum swing in public opinion. This is in the course of 22 years. So in 1996, we were looking at roughly a 70-30 split of Americans against same-sex marriage. And by 2018, we see the exact inverse, a 30-70 split. So this is significant for a number of reasons. First, we think it's a safe bet to say that this will be illustrative of changing attitudes towards same-sex parenting on the societal level. We are expecting to see a very similar pattern as more acceptance comes online within our society. And second, if we were to continue plotting life stage on this chart, we might see a natural progression of family evolution where couples continue to build on their family constellations after they've married. So therein lies a lot of the impetus for this study, and we really expect to see this segment growing and achieving more of a voice than we have in the past.
Great, thanks, Tara. So why focus on this particular segment? As researchers, we have seen a lot of attention paid to the broader LGBTQ market, which is approaching $1 trillion now in annual spending power. And while this type of research can be really helpful in establishing a baseline, we do believe that viewing the LGBTQ market monolithically is a big mistake. In fact, in some exploratory qualitative research we've done on this market, we've come across a persistent concern that a lot of the messaging and marketing out there seems to be a one-size-fits-all, or as someone put it, slap a rainbow flag on it kind of mentality. So our feeling is that companies who want to successfully attract and retain this segment need to proactively target them with the products, services, and messaging that appeal to their unique preferences and challenges. So the decision to cover this market was born out of both personal and professional curiosity. For me personally, as a parent in a same-sex couple raising a 3-year-old, it's become very clear to me that this particular community or segment to which I belong is not being adequately messaged or targeted. What do I mean by that? Sort of the broader LGBTQ branding, with sort of the carefree singles living it up on the beach, doesn't resonate as much to someone who spends more time focused on toddlers than Tanqueray. But this is not simply a personal or self-serving exercise either. Our preliminary research really shows that this is a growing market. So estimates suggest that the number of same-sex households with dependent children is set to increase by about 45% in the next 5 years, growing to over 300,000 by 2023. And that equates to a number of children raised by same-sex households increasing by about 60%. Secondly, it's a lucrative market. Same-sex couples with dependent children have above average household income, with male same-sex couples almost double female same-sex couples. Now, we think that some of this can be explained that this is in many ways a self-selecting segment. And by that, I mean in these types of couples or arrangements, there are not a lot of surprise pregnancies. So those who proactively decide to embark creating a family or in parenthood are more likely to be in a position to be able to afford it monetarily. We estimate that the annual childcare expenses spend of the market to be on the order of about $7.4 billion by 2023. Now, these are estimates that we've derived from a number of sources, including our internal modeling, but we believe that they're actually quite conservative and likely underreport the full opportunity. And why do we say that? Well, as Tara pointed out, gay marriage was only recently legalized at the federal level. So we think that a lot of the numbers of same-sex couples, cohabitating same-sex couples, have been historically underreported. Secondly, our study focuses really on a subsegment, which specifically are cohabitating or married same-sex couples. When we include single LGBTQ parents into the mix, the estimated annual spend is significantly higher. And finally, we're only looking at those who currently have children, dependent children under 18 in the household. An untapped segment here would be expecting couples who either are trying to create a family through surrogacy or IVF, or are in the process of adoption and have not yet had a placement of a child. Anyone who has had children knows that there's a lot of spending that happens before the child actually arrives. So for those reasons, we think that the opportunity is likely larger than the $7.4 billion.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Yeah, so just getting into a little bit of the areas of inquiry, and this list is preliminary. We're looking forward to the contributions from collaborators as they join in the structure of the study itself, which we'll get to momentarily. But where we're thinking right now that this is at, we think it's a pretty fair assumption that, at least on the surface level, same-sex parents are rational consumers, just seeking what they perceive to be valuable in products and services that are out there. But as Ben also mentioned, particularly based on our previous research, we know that there is more to the story with this segment, and we want to look specifically at what that is. So in particular, we'd like to know what are the attributes that drive consideration or purchase. So in what ways do same-sex parents differ in their attitudes and in approaching their parenting and their decision-making? What do they prioritize? So does this differ, and if so, how, from heterosexual parents? And what can marketers actually learn from this? We also have covered off earlier on some of the seismic shifts in LGBTQ acceptance. So we'd like to look more closely at that and how it's impacted same-sex parents specifically. So has it broadened the range of brands that they consider? How is the socio-political impact affecting this on a personal level? And we want to explore what's driving that same-sex parents' purchase journey. So for example, how important is a company's public showing of support and acceptance for LGBTQ? And of course, certainly on the flip side of that, we'd also like to take a closer look at how an image of intolerance can impact purchase behavior and brand affinity. And certainly we're aware of a viral element there, and so we'd like to take a look a little bit more at how this attitude spreads among consumers, particularly within the same-sex parenting circles. So the all-important question here is, how are brands performing on that front? And what are the examples of companies that are effectively reaching same-sex parents, and which ones have some work to do? And then in answer to that question, we also want to identify what specifically the brands can do to target the segment with success. What products and services are going to resonate? Are they new that they would need to be developed, or are they something existing that perhaps needs a different tack in terms of how it's reaching out to its customer base? So what strategic approach will resonate? And very importantly, we'd like to identify what kinds of messaging threads the needle of being inclusive while remaining authentic.
Great. Thank you, Tara. Digging into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of the proposed research design, our past experience really indicates that for a topic this complex and as untapped as the same-sex parenting couple, the best approach is a phased hybrid approach, incorporating both exploratory qualitative and quantitative methods. So what we are proposing is a robust sample plan, including both same-sex and opposite-sex couples raising children, which is going to allow us to draw meaningful comparisons between the two. The qualitative piece will include 4 one-hour focus groups centered on opinions and attitudes around parenting, really understanding where parents go to research goods and services, which attributes or qualities are important to them. And then the results of this qualitative work will help inform the quantitative design. The proposed quantitative study is a 20-minute online survey of 750 US resident individuals. As I indicated earlier, we're looking at a split of 500 same-sex cohabitating, 500 in a cohabitating same-sex couple with at least one dependent child for whom they're sharing parenting responsibility, and 250 in an opposite-sex couple with the same dynamic of at least one child. So again, this design will help us to draw meaningful comparisons between the two groups. And we think that the sample size is likewise robust enough that we anticipate being able to make comparisons within the groups, within LGBTQ, among life stage and gender. So in addition to question batteries around beliefs and attitudes, usage, purchase behavior, and messaging, we are also in the study allocating space for what we're calling sandbox questions. And Scott will go into a little bit more detail on this, but early funders of the project will have the ability to have some influence and input into one or more custom questions. So we are, as I said, allocating some space there. From an analytical perspective, we are proposing a driver's analysis with purchase consideration as an outcome variable, as well as segmentation by age, gender, household income, and addressable subsegments.
Okay, thanks, Ben. So moving on further into that, this is what we're looking at in terms of the timeline and deliverables. As you can see at this point, we are in the funding and early design stage of the project. Once the project is funded, we anticipate a total of 12 weeks. We're looking at a number of milestone deliveries, specifically a qualitative report as the outcome of completion of that phase. We are also looking at a formal qualitative report to follow, and then moving on into the next phase, we're looking at a top-line quantitative report and a combined summary report. And our plan is to deliver these presentations of our findings both online and in person if desired. And we do have some flexibility that Scott will get into there later. So this is a good time to point out that, given where we are in the process, we have quite a bit of flexibility regarding some of the nuts and bolts of the study design. So, for example, as Ben said, we do have the potential for collaborators with us on this project to participate in content of the questionnaire and in the discussion guide for the qualitative piece. We also have some potential for participants and partners with us here to gain some category exclusivity. And so certainly if one of our clients here is interested in having more influence and input, we're at a point where that is an option. So we are, just in summary, really excited once again to be embarking on this research study. And we're very excited also at the prospect of working with those of you who have joined us in this webinar today to explore ways that we can gain some very meaningful insights on this group that has yet to be explored as deeply as it can be. There has been quite a bit of research done on the broader LGBTQ consumer. We know this. And to our knowledge, this particular same-sex parent segment is just beginning to be addressed. So our exploratory work suggests that it is a lucrative and growing segment, and one that needs a very different and more refined message than the generic and monolithic inclusivity message, which we have seen gain momentum in inclusive marketing strategies across several brands. So this is a great opportunity to participate and influence groundbreaking research, and it's important to note that this can be done at a fraction of the cost of a fully custom study. So from our experience with big players, this would easily be a $200,000 study on a custom side, and it is well suited to companies currently doing outreach to LGBTQ community who may want to do a quick temperature check and maybe gain an additional source of information on how well they're doing. And of course, it is very beneficial to anyone who might be contemplating a strategy. So it is low cost and it's low risk, and it's a way to dip your toes in and get an understanding of this lucrative market. And so we hope you'll join us. We look forward to working with you together.
Great. This is really an interesting topic, and I want to thank Ben and Tara for putting the time into putting this presentation together. For those on the webinar, just a quick reminder that there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions for Ben and Tara, feel free to put them there, and I will read them in just a second. If you're interested in supporting this particular project, this is a semi-custom, multi-client project, as Tara said, really geared towards brands and organizations that are thinking about this particular topic, may not be thinking about doing a massive project or investing in a massive project right now. But as Tara mentioned, this is a great way to dip your toe into this study, get a feel for this particular segment, market segment. To register for this, you go to collaborata.com. We click on Browse Projects and click on We Are Family. Click on the green Go Fund This Project button, and then there's a quick form including number of shares and any special invoicing instructions you need for us. And so with the first 7 funders, you will have the ability to input into the scope of this study and further shape the study, session guides, and some of the output of the study, and get some proprietary questions in there. So with that, I'm going to pause just a second to see if we have any questions in our Q&A box. All right, so I have one for you, either Ben or Tara. Either of you can field this. When you think about this hypothesis, what do you expect to be some of the genuine differences between the hetero and same-sex parents?
Okay, interesting question. I can take this one, Tara, if you want. Great question. You know, as I alluded to earlier, we recently completed a qualitative research piece on the LGBTQ workplace and consumer issues. And a recurring theme in that study was the so-called rainbow marketing, which is that marketing specifically aimed at this community. And on the flip side, were companies who are widely perceived to be anti-LGBT. So it's kind of it's a bit of this Chick-fil-A conundrum that we talked to a cross-section of folks, you know, some who called Chick-fil-A hate chicken and were militantly against what they perceived to be the company's stance. Others considered themselves to be much more rational consumers. So I recall one respondent saying, you know, if Chick-fil-A wants to waste money on a losing cause, that's their business, but I'm still eating the chicken. So I think there's a duality here that will be really interesting to dig deeper into, particularly with regards to same-sex parents. So how much does a company's social stance on issues influence their purchase behavior? I think that's going to be a key finding from the study.
Great, thank you. And I've got one other quick question for you, and then I'm going to wrap up from here. Any other questions, we will follow up individually. Is there a specific aspect or stage of the path to purchase where you expect to uncover particularly meaningful insights in this study?
Yeah, I can take this one if you don't mind. I think that clearly, based on the research that we've done in the past, the early stages of the path to purchase process are going to be particularly telling. We have talked about, as Ben just gave some very good examples of, the attitudes and opinions of brands who appear to be either supportive or sometimes even hostile toward the LGBTQ community. So we would like to look at how much of an influence that actually is in the purchasing process. Particularly are same-sex parents absolutely avoiding a brand that may very well have a meaningful product or service for them and their families because of the perception of non-support. We have a suspicion that that's actually a very big influencer here. So within that stage, and we're looking at quite a lot. And also when we look at loyalty in general, and we look at sort of the word of mouth impact of consumers' personal experiences and how they share information on those experiences with their friends and family, we're interested to find out how this spreads. How do these experiences really resonate? Is someone at the end of their purchase journey happy, and have they had a positive experience that is on brand and on message with any LGBTQ friendly intent that a company may be expressing? If that's not resonating authentically with them, does that impact? Does it spread to others in their circles? And conversely, if it is a positive experience, how does that impact others in their path to purchase? We did do a study, as Ben said, on LGBTQ issues in the workplace, which also included a piece about overall corporate perception. And we did learn quite a bit in that study about how people do their research and how they do find out about brands that they choose to support. It's a very vocal community, very tight-knit, very close, and they share information. So we'd like to find out a little bit more about what goes into that and how it results in purchase behavior.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tara. That concludes this webinar. Again, this is We Are Family, Same-Sex Parenting. If you're interested in supporting this study or want to refer the study to a friend or a colleague, please go to collaborata.com, look for We Are Family, and register, and then select either refer a friend or fund this project. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much. On behalf of Collaborata, thank you for joining us. Thank you to Tara and Ben, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.